The panda secret. Why bamboo shoots could transform your health. If you prepare them the right way, there is one food that most people associate with pandas, distant forests, and exotic restaurant dishes. But that could actually become one of the smartest ingredients you bring into your kitchen. And here is the surprising part. For centuries, it was right in front of millions of people across Asia, while in much of the West, almost nobody looked at it with real attention. I'm talking about bamboo shoots. Yes, those tender, crunchy, understated shoots that seem too simple to matter. But behind that modest appearance is a combination that gets a lot of attention once you understand it. Very few calories, a good amount of fiber, a satisfying texture, useful minerals, growing scientific interest, and one detail that changes the entire story. If you do not prepare them properly, they can be dangerous. And that turns this food into something much more fascinating than just another healthy trend. Because we are not talking only about a light vegetable. We are talking about an ingredient that looks harmless but demands respect. And when a food combines potential, tradition, and a serious warning, you know there is something worth understanding. Most people think that for a food to be impressive, it has to do at least one of two things: taste spectacular or arrive surrounded by marketing, pretty packaging, and exaggerated promises. Bamboo shoots do not enter through that door. They enter much more quietly. They do not look like a nutritional gem. They do not scream for attention. They are not usually the star of a viral diet. And yet, there they are. Extremely low in calories, rich in fiber, with a decent amount of protein for a vegetable, and with a profile that can fit very well into strategies for weight control, digestive health, and better overall eating quality. That is the first twist of this video. Bamboo shoots do not impress through spectacle. They impress through efficiency. To understand why so many people are starting to talk about them, you first have to understand what they actually are. Bamboo shoots are the young stems of the plant, harvested while they are still tender, before they harden into the woody cane you already recognize. In this young stage, the shoot is edible, crunchy, delicate, and surprisingly versatile. It has been part of traditional cuisines in China, Japan, India, Vietnam, Thailand, and other countries for a very long time. It is not some modern discovery. It is an old food being rediscovered by a culture obsessed with finding the next new thing, when in many cases what is valuable has existed for centuries. And here comes the part that breaks expectations. 100 grams of bamboo shoots provide very few calories, roughly around 20 to 30, depending on the variety and the product. That already gets attention. But what is interesting is not only that they are light. What is interesting is that even while being light, they do not feel empty. They have fiber. They have structure. You chew them. They take up space. They feel like real food. And that matters, because the body and the brain do not respond the same way to something that simply passes through the system quickly as they do to something that actually fills you up, gives texture, requires chewing, and leaves you with the feeling of having eaten a real meal. That is one of their most powerful secrets. Their value is not only in the low calories, but in how much they can contribute to satiety for such a low energy cost. Now here comes the first common mistake. A lot of people hear low calorie and immediately conclude perfect for weight loss. But weight loss does not depend only on adding light foods. It depends on whether those foods help you build meals you can actually sustain. And that is where bamboo starts to shine, because it does not enter the plate as a sad leaf or a watery health drink with no soul. It enters as something with body, with crunch, with volume, with a texture that can make a soup, a stir-fry, or a side dish feel much more complete. And when food feels more complete, the brain stops perceiving it as punishment. That psychological detail matters more than people think. But not everything revolves around calories. And here comes another important turn. Bamboo shoots also contain interesting minerals, especially potassium. And potassium is not some decorative nutrient. It matters for muscle contraction, nerve activity, and overall internal balance. On top of that, bamboo shoots provide some plant protein, which is pretty interesting for such a light food. They are not a protein bomb, of course, but they still offer more than most people would expect from this kind of vegetable. That combination, fiber, low energy, some protein, and useful minerals, is exactly what makes them so appealing in a metabolic health context. Now I want to pause on a point that often gets exaggerated: the heart. Whenever a plant food becomes popular, people immediately start saying things like, it cleans your arteries, it dissolves cholesterol, or it protects against heart attacks, as if it were medication disguised as a side dish. That way of talking is not helpful. What you can say intelligently is this: because of their fiber content, low calorie density, and ability to fit into healthier eating patterns, bamboo shoots can be part of a diet that supports cardiovascular health. That is a serious statement, very different from turning them into cholesterol assassins. Useful nutrition does not need exaggeration. It needs context. And that brings us to one of the most interesting contexts of all: the gut. Bamboo shoots are attracting more and more attention because of their fiber and because of the growing interest in how certain plant components can support a healthier intestinal environment. As you already know, fiber does not only help you go to the bathroom, it also affects the speed of absorption, satiety, and the type of eating pattern that supports the microbiota better. And when a low-calorie food manages to provide fiber with a pleasant structure, that makes it a very useful ally for people who want to eat better without feeling like they are chewing on sacrifice. Now comes one of my favorite parts, because it completely changes how people see this food. Many people look at bamboo shoots as if they were just some weird side ingredient. But if you look more closely, they are a strategic tool. Want to add volume to a dish without pushing calories way up? There they are. Want to improve texture in a soup or stir fry? There they are. Want a vegetable that does not disappear instantly in your mouth or feel like an afterthought? There they are. And that is enormously valuable in real cooking, because often the problem is not that people do not want to eat better. The problem is that their healthy options bore them. But this is where the story gets serious, because there is one fact that changes the entire tone of this video. Fresh bamboo shoots should not be eaten raw. And this is not some stylistic recommendation. It is a real warning. Fresh shoots contain compounds that can release toxic substances if they are not properly removed through cooking. On top of the risk, raw shoots are usually bitter and hard to digest. In other words, it is not just that eating them raw is a bad idea. You should not do it. And here comes one of nature's great lessons. Not everything valuable is automatically safe. Sometimes the right food demands the right process. And in this case, that process is cooking. That means if you buy fresh bamboo shoots, it is not enough to wash them and toss them into a salad like some exotic cucumber. You need to peel them, remove the tough layers, slice them, and boil them long enough to make them safe and more pleasant in flavor. Bitterness, in fact, can be a useful clue. If they still taste strongly bitter, they are probably not ready yet. By contrast, canned bamboo shoots sold for consumption have already gone through a process that makes them safe. That difference matters a lot. Fresh bamboo and canned bamboo do not play by exactly the same rules in the kitchen. And here comes another fascinating dimension: culinary tradition. Asia did not make bamboo shoots a common ingredient by accident. It did it because they work. They absorb flavor. They adapt to broths, stir-fries, curries, soups, and marinades. They are not loud attention-seeking stars. They are more like that brilliant supporting actor who does not steal the scene, but makes the whole film better. They add crunch to a preparation. They add body to a dish. They add complexity without demanding extravagance. And that is part of their huge value. They do not force you to reinvent cooking. They fit into it. Now let's talk about this superfood myth, because honesty matters here. Bamboo shoots can be very interesting. Yes, they can support strategies for weight control, better diet quality, and digestive health. Yes, they can be a delicious way to increase fiber and volume. Yes, but they are not a magic wand. They are not going to compensate for a lifetime of ultra-processed food, sedentary living, poor sleep, and metabolic chaos. One of the biggest mistakes in health culture is turning useful foods into idols. And once you turn a food into an idol, you either misuse it or expect far too much from it. So the right question is not, do bamboo shoots cure anything? The right question is, how can they help within a better designed diet? That is the adult question, and the answer is powerful. They can help you build bigger feeling meals with lower calorie density. They can add fiber without heaviness. They can make healthy food more satisfying. They can replace worse ingredients. And when a food manages to do all of that without demanding too much mental energy, it becomes much more valuable than most people realize. Now I want to add one detail a lot of people will love. Bamboo shoots can be especially useful for people who want to eat a visually fuller plate without feeling like they are dieting. This matters because a large part of dietary failure does not happen because of physiological hunger alone. It happens because of visual and sensory frustration. People want to eat something that looks like real food, not just a moral concept on a plate. And this is where bamboo works beautifully. You can add it to a wok with vegetables, protein, and a light sauce. You can put it into an Asian-style soup. You can cook it with garlic, ginger, chili, soy sauce, or rice vinegar. Suddenly, the meal does not feel like punishment. It feels like a smart choice. And here comes another subtle turn. Bamboo shoots work not only because of what they contain, but also because of what they do not contain. They are not high in fat. They are not high in sugar. They do not carry the kind of energy density that silently explodes. That makes them an excellent ingredient for balancing the rest of the plate. A food like that does not compete for attention. It organizes. It helps the rest make more sense. But as always, context rules. If you drown them in heavy sauces, excessive oils, or recipes that overload the entire plate, the food is not to blame. Cooking, just like nutrition, never forgives lack of context. And that is another reason bamboo is so interesting. It forces you to cook with more awareness, to treat it properly, to prepare it properly, to understand that health rarely hides inside a miracle ingredient. It usually shows up in the intelligent use of the right ingredient. So here's the great truth I want to leave you with. Bamboo shoots are not some ridiculous trend or weird food for curious people. They are a real, ancient, functional, light, fiber-rich food that can be surprisingly useful for building smarter meals. They are not miraculous. They do not perform magic. They do not replace a balanced diet or a healthy lifestyle. But when they are cooked properly, integrated thoughtfully, and understood clearly, they can become a brilliant tool for your kitchen and your health. And maybe that is the most beautiful part of all. Sometimes your next great ally in health does not arrive in shiny packaging or an expensive capsule. Sometimes it comes out of the ground, looks strange, demands that you cook it properly, and has been waiting for centuries for you to pay closer attention. If this video opened your eyes, hit like so more people can discover that interesting nutrition does not always come from trendy supplements. Share it with someone who loves trying new ingredients or wants to eat lighter without settling for boring meals, because maybe the next great ally in their kitchen was never in a fit store at all. Maybe it was hidden inside a 1,000-year-old tradition. And now I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever tried bamboo shoots? Or was this your first sign that maybe the pandas knew something you didn't?